We begin, though, this Friday morning with the weather. Early March is already living up to the "in like a lion" proverb.
California is getting hit with a lot of rain from yet another so-called atmospheric river. And it's not just rain. In higher elevations, it's snow. Pacific Gas and Electric says it has stationed resources, including more than 400 crews and equipment throughout their service area. And to the east, a different storm system is bringing snowfall to the Great Lakes and Northeast and rain to the Mid-Atlantic today. Our coverage begins this morning with NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa, who's in Detroit.
Hey guys, good morning from the Motor City, where, as you can see, it is really coming down. All of this here just coming down overnight, up to 6 inches expected by tonight, which obviously, based on this, is easy to believe. But then meanwhile, out on the West Coast, a new atmospheric river moving in overnight, dropping heavy rain, wind and snow into parts of California that, as we know, are already inundated after a record-breaking winter. That latest system knocking out power to tens of thousands in California overnight, prompting evacuation orders across the state and 16 million people currently under a flood watch. States of emergency now declared in 34 counties, including 5 in the San Francisco Bay Area, where they are bracing for potential flooding, landslides, and again, high winds. And in light of all of that, California's Governor Gavin Newsom now asking President Biden to declare a state of emergency, potentially freeing up federal resources for the hardest hit parts of that state. And meanwhile, again, here in the Midwest, millions waking up to scenes like this after this system moved through northern Iowa and the Dakotas before, as you can see, making its way into Michigan. Guys.
All right, Maggie, thank you so much. Let's take a closer look at what might be coming your way this weekend with your Morning News Now forecast.
Angie Lassman joins us. Good morning, Angie.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, more of what Maggie was just talking about. Parts of the Northeast are going to get some of that snow. We've got a lot of rain to worry about in the West. So here's the breakdown of all those alerts. We've got a lot of them. Winter weather alerts are totaling 51 million people right now. We've got 16 million under flood alerts. And when it comes to wind alerts, we've got 20 million people. So a lot going on with 2 major storm systems kind of bookending the country. We have the eastern one that is affecting where Maggie was right now, Chicago, Cleveland, seeing some of that snow. Minneapolis is quiet now, but we're going to continue to see some of this rain working from places like Texas up into the Carolinas, and then slowly but surely moving offshore as that system departs off the coast. Here's how it plays out between now and then, though. The snow is going to eventually spread into parts of New York, Pennsylvania through the day today. It's not going to be wild amounts of snow by any means, but a couple of inches that will make it a little difficult when you're traveling through the day today and into early tomorrow morning. There's the rain that'll be draped along the I-95 corridor. It's going to be a chilly kind of rain for you, still around by the time that afternoon commute rolls around. And then tomorrow, the system moves offshore and we'll see some quieter conditions settling in with just a few snow showers left over. There's those snow totals that'll be highest in portions of western Pennsylvania and New York and along Lake Erie. Now, we head over to the West Coast, where there's plenty of people in flood alerts, and no surprise why. We have heavy rain working through San Francisco into Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, seeing some of this rain. The heaviest is going to be focused towards central California. We'll see anywhere from 6 to 10 inches. The Sierra foothills could see 6 to 8 inches. And this is heavy rain on already saturated ground. So the flash flood risk is high. This is not something we often see. These alerts are not issued very often, and the threats are immense. Mudslides, landslides, avalanche threat where there is still snow. We also have the rising snow levels. So on top of that, that means the melting snow that's already there is going to add to those rainfall totals, and it's already going to be it's already likely a mess, and we're going to see that continue through at least the next day or so. Into Sunday morning, another 2 to 6 feet of snow for the Sierra Nevada mountain range, and this is going to be on top of all of that historical storm system that brought all of that snow over the past couple of weeks. Eventually, it'll move out. We'll see nicer conditions here. Eventually. We've got a couple of days to deal with
this summer, we'll see better conditions.
Yes. Some of those places wiped out drought, though. So, yeah. I mean.
All right. We'll see. Thank you so much, Angie. Appreciate it. President Biden unveiled his administration's $6.8 trillion budget proposal for the 2024 fiscal year in Philadelphia yesterday. He claims it'll reduce the deficit, bolster military spending, and ramp up competition with China. Though with a Republican-controlled House, it might be dead on arrival. NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba joins us now with the details. Monica, good morning. So walk us through, what are some of the big headlines here? What exactly would, at least in the president's mind, $6.8 trillion get us in 2024?
Hi there, Joe. Well, not much here is actually that new, and that is what the big takeaway is here from all of this. Much of these programs investing in things like early child care, investing in things like capping insulin at $35 a month, returning to some social programs. These were things that candidate Joe Biden proposed back when he was running in 2020. And these are things that likely President Joe Biden, once he does announce a reelection bid, which we're fully expecting in the coming weeks, that's what he's going to be running on. So when you look at this budget, you really have to look at it in the context of a big wish list and sort of blueprint for what that campaign could look like. Because you said it, Joe, this is very likely dead on arrival given the current status on Capitol Hill and a gridlocked Washington. So this is just sort of a starting out point. It's the beginning of conversations. Again, these are issues that the president has talked about for a long time, wanting to reduce the deficit by $3 trillion. And the way to do that, he's proposing, is to increase taxes on the wealthiest corporations and Americans. But again, that's something he's been talking about for a long time and something we know Republicans currently oppose.
Yeah, so on the other side of this conversation is Republicans. What are the biggest things they're sounding off on?
Yeah, and when we saw this released yesterday, you saw House Speaker Kevin McCarthy saying it was, quote, completely unserious. Other Republicans simply said the fact that he wants to propose some of this new spending is unacceptable. That's something they've been saying for a very long time. They would like to see that reduced. So there really are just massive differences here. The Republicans are expected to put out their own budget proposal also in the next month or so, and then the real talks will begin. But there are still so many things to iron out here, Joe.
All right, Monica Alba. Thank you so much, Monica.
We're also following two other major stories out of Washington this morning. The CEO of rail titan Norfolk Southern was in the hot seat on Capitol Hill yesterday. Members of Congress grilled him about the company's safety record in the wake of several recent high-profile accidents. Plus, an update on Senator Mitch McConnell, who was hospitalized after falling at a fundraiser Wednesday evening. Joining us now to break it all down is NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin. Julie, good morning. So first, let's start off with Senator McConnell. NBC News has learned that he actually suffered a concussion from that fall. So how's he doing this morning?
Yeah, good morning, guys. Look, McConnell is going to be in the hospital for the next few days, according to his office, for treatment and observation because of that concussion that he suffered after falling at this fundraiser put on by a super PAC actually aligned to him and the Republican leadership. And so yesterday we talked to Republican senators who got a little bit of an update during the lunch meeting. They actually said that McConnell's biggest concern was that he was missing the halibut being served by Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and she actually sent him a plate to the hospital. So he is conscious, he is talking. Senators told me he is in good spirits. This is an 81-year-old man who has been through some falls before, including recently in 2019, and he's expected to make a full recovery according to his office, but he will be in the hospital for a few days.
Oh, we do love some goodwill and good spirits in Washington. And Julie, I want to now turn to another big story in Washington. Yesterday, lawmakers grilled Norfolk Southern CEO Alan Shaw over the derailment in East Palestine. They demanded answers for residents there impacted by the disaster. And during his opening remarks, Shaw made this apology. So first, let's listen.
I'm terribly sorry for the impact this derailment has had on the folks of that community. And yes, it's my personal commitment and Norfolk Southern's commitment that we're going to be there for as long as it takes to help East Palestine thrive and recover.
So, Julie, walk us through the major takeaways yesterday. Did Shaw offer any specifics on cleanup plans? And did he also comment about the latest derailment in Alabama that happened just hours before his testimony?
Yeah, well, for his inkling, no. The answer is he did not in his opening statements. There have been also, just to point out here, 4 major train derailments from Norfolk Southern all across the country in the last 5 weeks. So it's easy to lose track of them when they happen so often. And he did not bring it up until questioned by Senator Sheldon Whitehouse later in the hearing, just to show you how frequent this happens. And that train derailment was said to have happened due to an overheated wheel bearing, something that Alan Shaw, the CEO of the company, said that they will do more inspections on. They've actually pulled several of those off the line, since that is also believed to have contributed to the derailment in East Palestine earlier in February. So a lot to unpack here. Senators really question him from both sides of the aisle. Democrats actually pressing him on the health concerns, but also the larger conversation of the relationship between rail companies and their employees who are overworked and burnt out. And Bernie Sanders, the senator who's in charge actually of the Senate Health and Labor Committee, questioned him on paid sick leave. And that's something we're also going to be seeing in the coming months. But look, the CEO committed to a down payment, he said, of at least $20 million to help the community rebuild. And I should mention, he's also going to appear before the Senate Commerce Committee in 2 weeks. That committee is also going to consider potentially the rail safety bill being proposed by a bipartisan group of senators.
We'll definitely be watching that. And Julie, I know aside from Shaw and Norfolk Southern, the Biden administration also received some backlash during that hearing over their communication on air and water safety. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this was an interesting line of questioning, not only by Ohio's junior Senator J.D. Vance, the Republican, who actually said he visited the area and saw contamination. He pointed that out. He was the voice of residents in that area. And then we saw the top Republican on the panel, Shelley Moore Capito, get into a back and forth with Deborah Shore. She's the regional EPA administrator in that area. They were talking about why it took a month for all of this waste and debris to begin moving out of the area, and also why it took so long for them to begin testing for dioxins. This is something residents were complaining about all month long. Deborah Shore said they have begun that process because of residents' concerns, and they will continue to address those concerns as the waste moves out of the area.
Really important coverage. Julie Sirkin, thank you so much.
This morning, there are new developments in an investigation into former President Donald Trump here in New York. Two of his attorneys tell NBC News that Trump has been told he can testify before a grand jury in New York City next week. It's part of an investigation into hush money paid to an adult film actress, Stormy Daniels. Now, Trump denies he slept with Daniels, and the New York District Attorney's Office has convened a grand jury to investigate hush money that was paid to her. The DA's office has declined to comment. NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard joins us now with the latest on all this. So, Vaughn, we know Trump has faced numerous criminal investigations, special counsel inquiries over the years. What's at the center of this case here in New York, and how likely is it really that Trump is going to accept this offer to testify before the grand jury?
Right. Joe, first, this is notable because typically in New York, when prosecutors come to a potential defendant, they present them the opportunity to testify before a grand jury. But if they were to choose to do so, they would waive their rights to immunity, meaning that everything that individual, this case potentially that being Donald Trump, would have to fully and truthfully present their side of the story if they were to agree to sit before the grand jury. Now, this all comes down to those hush money payments alleged to have taken place ahead of the 2016 presidential election. Donald Trump has acknowledged transferring $130,000 to his former fixer and lawyer, Michael Cohen. That money was given to porn actress Stormy Daniels. Donald Trump, to note, has denied ever having sex with Stormy Daniels, but instead said that it was to silence defamatory statements made against him. And yet what is being looked at here by the Manhattan District Attorney is whether that was, number one, the falsifying of business records, because it was not noted as part of the Trump organization that money was actually used for those purposes, but also potentially illegal campaign, and essentially what would amount to an in-kind, illegal, undocumented campaign contribution to the Trump presidential campaign.
So, Vaughn, another significant part of this is the New York Times cited sources saying the DA's office had signaled to Trump's lawyers that he could face criminal charges. Two of Trump's attorneys told NBC News late last night that he was not told charges were forthcoming. A spokesperson for Trump responded with a statement saying, quote, the Manhattan District Attorney's threat to indict President Trump is simply insane. So the big question, could this signal that prosecutors in New York are close to filing charges?
You know, this is an investigation that was picked back up in just the last couple of months. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office had previously investigated these hush money payments, but it was not until this January in which a new grand jury was impaneled. We know that Michael Cohen, that former fixer and lawyer, has sat with prosecutors now 20 different times. We know the grand jury is hearing from multiple witnesses and gathering evidence, and Donald Trump is the fixture of this investigation. His presidential campaign is the heart of this investigation. And so that is where kind of there's this open question mark here as Donald Trump receives this offer, is the extent to which he is a target of the Manhattan DA here.
So quickly, Vaughn, let's talk about what's next. Do we know where this case before the grand jury stands right now?
That is, Michael Cohen is expected to grow before the grand jury, we're told, as soon as here next week. And if that offer stands to Donald Trump to go to the grand jury, as we're reporting, then the anticipation would be that that would be the near culmination of this case, to have the heart of the investigation go before the grand jury. Then the question here is, what charges would the Manhattan DA potentially bring? It's a misdemeanor in New York for falsifying business records, but in the case that the falsification of those business records is meant to justify another crime, quote, another crime, then it would be elevated to a felony. And if the Manhattan DA contends that these testimony payments took the form of an in-kind campaign contribution, then potentially charges of felony against Donald Trump could be handed down.
All right, stay tuned. Vaughn Hilliard. Vaughn, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.